All right. So we're talking today about this idea around serving clients versus pleasing clients. So what do I mean? What do we mean? Well, there's a massive difference, and I think a lot of real estate agents get this like this very blurred line. They mix it up quite often. What happened was in our coaching community, someone posted, I think, I don't know, a couple months ago, and people and a lot of agents feel this way. They feel like they're always working 7 days a week, around the clock, always having to respond to their clients. And that's them believing that they're giving good client service. That and the interesting thing is only realtors behave that way. Like there's no other industry where, you know, call it anything, where you could just call a random person at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night and expect them to like get into a business conversation. And so that's like the high level understanding of what we're talking about, because there's such a massive difference. And I think after this conversation, I think maybe a new awareness around what it means to give client service, not client pleasing, and people will really understand the difference. So let's jump into it. Here's how I would start this conversation. To me, when I say serving clients, what I'm talking about is I'm not doing things to get them to like me. That's pleasing the client. That's making it about me. Serving a client is doing what is best for them. So let me give the best example. Let's talk about pricing a property. It's probably the easiest way to understand this idea. Most real estate agents tell sellers what they believe the seller wants to hear around price. That is them trying to please the seller. But it actually doesn't serve the seller because it's not the truth, because it's not going to cause the property to sell. And serving the client would be to tell the seller the truth around price, even though it's not what they want to hear. Even if it's a risk because the seller might get upset. That's the difference between serving somebody, having a willingness to tell somebody the truth, even in the face of adversity. So let's talk about that for just a second, because price, I think, like the price around someone's home is probably the easiest way to understand this. And there's a bunch of other areas where this shows up in a realtor's business. But let me get your guys' thoughts on that so far, and then I want to talk about another point.
Well, Ben.
I think people pleasing to an extent is like not taking responsibility for what you believe in or what you think, and you're just telling them, obviously what we just said, what they want to hear, and just avoiding responsibility of your decision at a high level. So kind of like, can I take an example out of real estate for a second?
Absolutely, because I got a couple too. Yeah, please.
Cool. So I think a lot of times when somebody has an opinion about something, and right, we don't want to tell people what to do, right? But if somebody's wanting us to do something, so here's my example, right? People say all the time, you need to go to college to get a good career and make the type of money you want to make. And maybe somebody pushes back and says, no, I don't want to do that. And hang with me, maybe I can put a bow on this, but and they decide not to go to college. They build a career. Maybe they're an entrepreneur or an artist or an athlete, and they do it a different way. And then all of a sudden, the thing that you pushed back on is the exact reason all of a sudden it's your superpower, right? So it's like, oh yeah, of course he's successful. He did what he loved and he never followed the herd, right? So it's kind of like referring this back. It's like, well, yeah, of course that agent's successful. He never takes an overpriced listing. Versus what I think so many agents fall into is, oh yeah, you want to sell it for this price? No problem. We can do it.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, that's the exact reason that you're not succeeding.
All right, real quick, and then we'll get right back to the content. If you're a real estate agent, you're looking to build a listing-based business, a business where you can generate a multiple six-figure income, a business that doesn't require you to waste thousands of dollars on the new marketing gimmicks, then I'm going to invite you to click the link right underneath this video to learn about our Listing Agent Academy coaching program. This is a 6-month intense coaching system that more than 3,000 agents from every market all over the country have now gone through. And here's the reality. Here's the truth. I will shoot you straight. This program is not for everyone. This is for agents who value being around winners. They value being in a community of other real estate agents that actually show up, that actually put forth the work. And this is for agents that embrace high levels of accountability and visibility. To get the details, all you have to do is click the link beneath this video. You can schedule a coaching consultation and then you can decide for yourself. So with that being said, let's jump back into the content. Great.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
It does.
Go ahead, Cole. Yeah, go ahead,
Well,
Colby.
speaking of price, like Brandon, this is one thing you taught me before we even really started working together in this coaching company. Just as a side note, I met Brandon on YouTube like a lot of you guys. I actually went to go sell at his brokerage. And that's kind of how all of this started. But I remember when we were first getting together, I had a different coach and I was so confident in my pricing presentation.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
right.
if you remember that in the office. And I put my pricing presentation up against yours. And just the best example of that is the way you present price and walk a seller through it. It's not your price. This isn't what you think it should sell for. This isn't like what it's going to sell for. It's the third party of the market, right? And so agents want to not only tell the seller what they want to hear, but they want the seller to think that they're smart, that they know the answer. And inevitably, when that doesn't happen, you're the bad guy. Like for me, another example, in high school, I played football, tore my ACL my senior year, and I had to get surgery. So when I went to the doctor is going to diagnose what's wrong. He's going to say, all right, well, based on kind of what we're seeing here, this is the route I think we should take, but there's this risk as well. And if this happens, here's the plan of action from there. But so it's like, if it did go wrong, that's not on the doctor. Like he told me about that. He told me what would happen next. And so when we're talking about price with our clients, what Brandon teaches all of us to do, which is, got to sell the home 3 times. There's the rule of 3 play. And we're just taking them through the scenarios. And you're like, hey, but we could do whatever you want, but here's what's likely going to happen. And here's how I suggest we go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of those are really good points. And when I think about, here's the balance. The balance is, I think a lot of people that are newer to real estate, they want to give, and they should want to give their client an amazing experience. They confuse that, however, with pleasing the client versus serving them. Let me give you another example, okay? Because what most agents think is like great client service is the whole idea, you can call me anytime, night or day, 24/7, I'm always there for you. And the problem with that theory is when the client is hitting you up because you've invited them to call you at crazy hours of the day, and when you're not able to fulfill on those expectations, they actually backfire. Well, Ben, you said that I could call you anytime. And when you don't, it actually, the value prop you think you were offering to like separate yourself, like, hey, I really pride myself on client service. You can call me night or day, and you don't answer and you don't respond right away the way that you positioned it. Now it's backfired. Whereas, check this out. Here's what I believe. I believe that in human relationships, when boundaries are set, trust and respect increases.
Yes.
And the exact opposite is true. When there are no boundaries are set whatsoever, that trust and respect goes down. It's how you have to parent, quite frankly.
I was just going to say that. That's exactly
that's what I think about. And so when we bring that into the business of real estate, I know this makes a lot of agents nervous, But if you set boundaries with the seller to say, hey, Sundays I'm off with my kids, so you can expect to hear from me Mondays and Fridays. That's when I'm going to give you an update, and you set some boundaries.
Yep.
One agent says, well, man, that makes me nervous. I got to be accessible. Well, no other industry operates like that. Like the fact of the matter is you can have a day off. Like this is in your own head. And so you just have to set those boundaries. The reason why realtors are commoditized, it isn't the consumer that came up with this idea. It's the realtors that brought this on ourselves. The reason why they hit you up on Christmas morning and say, hey, I need to sell this house is because most realtors will.
Yep. And just back to the parenting thing, it's like kids want to find the line, so they keep pushing because they don't know where it is.
That's right.
So like your client, he doesn't know what's appropriate and what's not because you haven't told him.
That's right.
So he's like, until this guy tells me not to do something, he said he's accessible 24/7, honey. I'm going to call him. I need something right now. So I'm going to call him so I don't forget in the morning.
And agents think that leads to a better client experience because I am accessible, but it actually induces the seller with anxiety. It's like, if they can reach out to you for the most part, there is never like an emergency at 9:00 at night. There's nothing that could be going wrong that they absolutely need to get a hold of you for. And so when you set those expectations, hey, I'm going to proactively communicate to you these days and these times. And if there is something urgent, I will reach out to you. Right. As opposed to the seller even if they call you once at 9:00, they're going to think, oh man, this guy never answers the phone. He said he was going to answer. So now your value has gone down. And if you do answer, you're just, number one, you're not going to be prepared. You're going to be caught off guard. You're not going to give them the right answers. And so it's just all around just horrible. Yeah.
And
we can end the podcast right now because Colin just said exactly what I had on my notes. What he just said was the difference between serving and pleasing. Serving is saying, Ben, okay, Ben's my client. I say, Ben, listen, it's incredibly important for you to know what's going on because the biggest complaint in our industry is that sellers don't know what's going on. Their agents keep them in the dark. So you can expect us to have 2 weekly updates every single week. As an example, we're going to talk every Monday and every Friday at 2 p.m. I'm going to share with you everything that's going on. Okay. Now, when there's times that I need you, if there's an urgent matter, I'll let you know. But you can expect to hear from me at least minimum twice a week. Now, when you set those expectations, to Colin's point, everything goes better because they understand the process. But when you don't set those expectations and everything's open-ended because you want to please people, because you want them to like you, just call me any time of the day, the seller is filled with anxiety. Brandon, what's going on? Hey, I haven't heard from you. What's happening with my listing? What's going on with this? What's going on with that? And it backfired. Now, let me give another framework. Everybody's familiar with the like, trust, and respect triangle, right? Most agents lead with like. And if they just flip that, if they lead with, hey, I'm going to build this person's trust and respect first, and if they end up liking me later, then that's just a bonus. If they can do business this way, I'm telling you, they become so much more appealing to clients because watch this. Someone in the audience might say, yeah, that's bullshit. No. People do business with people they like. I agree, but watch this. Would you rather do business with someone that you like, but you do not trust and you do not respect? That's the challenge. Just because you like somebody, if they're not trustworthy, you don't trust them to do the right thing, and you don't respect the fact that they know what they're doing, I would argue you probably don't do business with that person. You can go have beers. You can go shoot around a golf. Fine. But my challenge to the like side of the stool is I put my money that people would rather do business with people that they trust first, that they respect second, and that they like third. If the like is there, it's just a bonus. But when we talk about serving clients in the role of a fiduciary, we're talking about selling someone's house. I think if you the like piece is the least important. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think that for a seller to trust you is the most important. For the seller to respect the fact that you are an expert, that you do know what you're doing, is probably the second thing. And I always say that at a listing appointment. This is what I say at the beginning of every single listing appointment. I say, Colton, listen, here's my goal. My goal tonight is to give you the truth around price, the truth around what it's going to take to sell your property. And sometimes that means you will hear things that you may not like to hear. And if that ends up meaning that you and I don't do business together, then at least I can walk out of here knowing that I told you the truth. And if you're the type of seller who appreciates working with an agent who isn't worried about, manipulating information to get you to like me in hopes that you'll list your house with me, then I might be the type of agent for you. But if you're looking for the agent to just bend the truth in hopes that they tell you what you're looking to hear, I'm just simply not your guy. Is that okay? And there's never a world where someone says, no, I'd rather you lie to me. No, just BS me. Tell me the good stuff. Just tell me all. No, sellers always say we wouldn't have it any other way, Brandon. We just want somebody to be honest with us. And that is the difference between serving and pleasing. Your thoughts on that piece?
Ben, I don't want to cut you off, but it just made me think of something. Like if you have, so you talked about like if you lead with like first, you're not going to have the other two. If you lead with any one of those, like if you have only one, you'll lose it. Meaning, if you're only going to get them to like you and they don't trust and respect you, inevitably they're not going to like you. If you try to lead with them respecting you, but they don't trust you, they're going to lose their respect for you as well. So like the respect and trust have to be built from the get-go in tandem, or else you'll lose them.
All three matter.
Yeah.
All three matter. But I think the basis of a relationship, in the way I see it, is trust.
Yeah.
Trust is the most important thing. It's like, again, I go back to like, would you be, okay, watch this. Would you be okay with a spouse that you liked a lot, but you didn't trust? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think all three are important, but I think the point, and we'll move on to something else, is too many agents, too many times are focused on what can I say to get this person to like me? And here's another example. This is the classic. They walk through people's house. Doesn't matter if it's like the worst house ever. Oh my God, I just love what you've done with the place. It's just a beautiful home. It's just BS. Like, and I'm not saying you need to go in there and rip someone's house apart, but there's a part to be like honest, transparent. That's what it takes to list property. And I think that's what causes these properties to expire, quite frankly, is a seller ended up hiring an agent who was not willing to tell the person the truth because they were more motivated to get the seller to like them than to serve them. Ben, what were you going to say?
Well, one more thing on that is I think people often get what is building rapport wrong. And they think it's, I like your house, you like that. I like dogs, you like dogs, right? That's your famous example. And the guy's like, I hate this dog. I'm babysitting it for my daughter. Like, I can't stand dogs. I'm allergic, right?
Yeah.
Versus, people think that's building rapport, trying to find kids or golf or dogs. But really building rapport is building credibility in your craft. Then if you stumble across that you both have kids after you've done a phenomenal job delivering your expertise, like you said, that's the bonus. But not getting caught up in, I think we need to be really secure in our identity of who we are, and not, just like we don't want to do over the phone, just like we don't want to do on listing appointment, is validate who we think we are on a listing appointment. Because if you are trying to do that, we're in a business of land of the no, right? So maybe 8 times out of 10, you're not going to be getting what you want validated.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Fair?
Yeah, totally fair. Like we're not looking to get our emotional needs met in these situations
Exactly.
at all. And, I think the other takeaway when
And I
you
don't think they
focus,
are either. Is that fair too?
yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly right. I'll tell you, that's exactly what I was going to say, Ben, is like the sellers aren't inviting you over to look for another friend. That's not the point of inviting you to the property. Like, I hope we really like this agent. Like, we're really looking for another friend to add to our repertoire. That's not even in their brain. You know what I mean? But like going back to what we were talking about before, just for a second, is like, here's the other problem with pleasing people is resentment. Because when you go into a situation with a client and you overpromise and you promise them the world, first off, it's virtually impossible to deliver on that, right? Like you go in there, you discount your commission to nothing, you overprice it like crazy. You say you're gonna camp outside front of the house and be at every showing and give them foot rubs and be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. What the agent who says that doesn't think that the seller's going to take them up on it, but they do. And when they do, the seller then tries to get all, like upset at the client. Like, God, this is such a pain in the ass client. No, it's not a pain in the ass client. You set it up that way because you wanted to please them. You wanted to talk a lot because you wanted to overpromise everything. That's on you. We put your house in a magazine. We do this, we do that, 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 we do that. Well, that's what the seller's expecting you to do, dum-dum. Because here's the other thing. Let's talk about open houses. This is the last point that I have on this. Like, here's the thing. Like, the reality is, with the way things are right now, open houses don't sell the house most of the time. We use open houses as a lead generation strategy. So the difference between pleasing and serving, when the seller is adamant about open houses, the truth is there's a lot of risk for the seller in having an open house. Theft, like getting the house all messed up. Like you got one agent. What happens if there's 25 people in that house? How well is that agent able to protect the home? But the weak agent just says, yep, I do open houses, no problem, because they want to please. I'm happy to do open houses. But the reality is, Mr. Seller, they're going to help me a lot more than they're going to help you. Believe me, I want to do an open house every single day. If you're comfortable with them, I would love to do them. But they're going to help me a lot more than they are going to help you. That is another practical example of serving versus pleasing. Serving is just telling the truth, right? Pleasing is just, telling people what they want to hear. That's the plain and simple. How do you guys look at the open house thing, Ben? Tell me, what are your thoughts on what I just said?
I 100% agree. And I think something I just heard recently in a conversation with an agent was the prospect asked, Brandon, are you willing to do open houses? Or what's your opinion on open houses? Just like you asked me. And they go, oh, I'll do them. I'll do, 3 a weekend, blah, 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 blah. Like, cause that's what they thought they wanted to hear versus saying, Brandon, that's a great question. Why do you ask? And then the prospect says, you know what? I know it's a big thing. You probably want to do it. You probably think it's going to sell, but honestly, if that's how we have to sell my home, I don't want to do it because I've got all this really nice artwork, cars, this, that, and the other.
Unbelievable point that we almost didn't bring up. Just go rewind that. Like, so, I mean, that is so true. When the agent assumes because they're so heavy on the pleasing side and it backfires yet again. Hey, what do you think about open houses? Oh my God, I can't even regurgitate it the way you said. That the agent says, oh yeah, anything you want.
Yeah.
And the seller's,
let me tell you about my grand open.
Yeah. And then that's the exact reason they lost the listing because the seller didn't want any open houses.
Yeah. And you just hung your whole strategy on it. Oh, that's exactly what I do. That's the biggest reason we sell the home, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, you're not my guy now.
Oh my gosh. That's so good.
Let us think about it. We'll get back to you.
Yeah. That goes back to some tactical sales stuff, like always answering a question with the question, right? Don't assume anything. But if you're so concerned with getting someone to like you, it will backfire. Anyway, this is great. And I just want to end with this, that for all the agents out there who think that they have to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that is not true. There's no clients that have that expectation. It's the realtors putting this into the client's head, and then we feel like we have to fulfill on that. But there's no other industry that operates that way. None. And people rant and rave about their other service providers all the time that aren't accessible 24/7. And quite frankly, I'll promise I'll end with this. Doing that probably does you more harm than good. It probably devalues you, because when you're just accessible all of the time, it means your time is worth nothing. And when your time is more scarce, people will respect the time you give them. And that's been my experience serving clients. So any last thoughts from you guys on this?
No.
It could be the very thing that puts you out of business.
Yeah.
It is kind of my thought, right? Just to what you said. It's like you're always accessible. It could be the very thing. You charge nothing. You've got to put your needs ahead so that you can actually afford to stay in business.
That's
versus
right.
just giving everything out first and dealing with yourself last.
That's how this came up. I mean, the agent who posted in our Facebook group literally had to like pause her career.
Wow.
She was so burnt out I think that's what you're getting at is
exactly.
She made herself so accessible to clients that her lifestyle diminished so much that now look, she can't serve any clients. So how is that better for the client? Right?
Such a good point.
Maybe the other thing I'd add quickly, because Ben talked about the agent assuming what the seller wanted to hear. Well, also the seller assumes certain things as well, and you have to get them to question those assumptions, right? Because if you don't get them to question those assumptions and you just tell them why it's wrong, like tell them why open houses are bad, like lead them down the path. Like in the mastermind we did yesterday, we had the door knocking mastermind. Dwayne, awesome guest. He's right in line with what we do. He's just asking questions the whole time. Time. And so not only through sales, but through service, you need to ask questions and get them to question their own assumptions.
Yeah. And I don't want anybody to take yes, I agree. I don't want anybody to take my little open house thing like literally. Like there's value in them.
Right.
It was just an example. That's all.
Of course.
There's value in bringing your properties to market with doing some private events. Like we talk about that all the time. But I mean, the truth is the agent's getting much more benefit out of those than sellers these days. Unless we go to a world where there's no buyer's agents. So I'm not going to rehash our conversation from the last podcast, or all this stuff happening with these commission lawsuits. If that happens, then I would say open houses are king, because that's how you sell houses. And so that would be kind of cool. But anyway, I don't even want to get in that again. So anyway, we'll see everybody back Monday. If you guys have questions, throw them in the comments, and we'll see you guys soon.